Welcome to the Red Pill Cartel Podcast with Davey Wavy, the epicenter for truthers, conspiracy, pop culture, and more.
What's up, guys? Returning guest from episode 130. It's been a year and a half, but the one stupid fuck himself, Brandon Joel Williams, is here again. And I'm just going to skip the introductions, and you can go listen to 130 before this one if you want. So how you doing, brother?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Not too bad. Not too bad, man. I just got over the flu, so my voice is kind of fucked up, but we'll see how it goes. I got some cranberry juice going on, so
Hell yeah.
and cigarettes, which is great for my voice.
Hey, healing sticks, my friend. Just burn some joss. You know what I'm saying?
That's why we have nicotine receptors in our brain, right? So yeah, man, you've been quite busy since I last had you on. You now have, is it 2 courses and another extensive course? I forget what it's called.
So I have the free contract killer course, and then I released the 2.0 version of that on August 18th, 2024.
Okay.
So it's been like, what is that? 6 months, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, a little over 6 months. Yeah.
Right.
Time flies.
How much? Yeah, it sure does, man. How much traction have you been gaining with people joining up and things like that, and how many testimonials do you have now?
Well, I want to say we had 844,000 watch hours on YouTube last year. I want to say a huge portion of that was after the 2.0 course was released. In the last 28 days, I've had about 50,000. So 50,000 times, yeah, it fluctuates. I would say we're probably on target to do somewhere between 600 and 800,000 watch hours this year.
That's amazing, man.
Depending on what happens, if I release a 3.0 course this summer, that could spike. It'd be nice to get over a million watch hours.
Yeah, for sure, dude. The episode I did with you when you first came on is still my top played episode.
Hey, I love it.
And it spiked like within like a couple of days. I was like, holy shit, what's going on here? So
I hear that a lot. I actually hear that a lot. Almost every show I'm on, not to be like egotistical, I always ask. I'm always like, hey, how was the performance on that? And almost every show is like it's the top performing show either of all time or minimally it's the top performing show of that year. But typically it's top performing show of all time.
Yeah. Dude, I get like celebrities and shit on, and like it doesn't even compare to what your episode was.
That's hilarious, dude. That's beautiful.
It's so funny.
People want this information really bad. Yeah, and I've I make it seem kind of easy, but this is all I do. This is all I do. Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours. And probably if you add in all the marketing and all the creative costs and everything for all the logos and all the craziness, probably like $160,000 invested in this project.
Mm-hmm. It is all that you do, and you're practically putting your life on the line, but it's also lucrative. So that's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I didn't make any money the first 2-3 years. And then when I opened up the law firm, started taking on clients. I opened up a law firm, started taking on clients because I wanted to quit my day job and do this full time. So I made the transition in September and October of 2023 is when I made that transition.
Right. That's awesome.
So 24, all of 24 was me flying solo, doing this full time. And then I'm still doing this full time. And then this year, at the end of April, is our first in-person event. I'm having an event with Cameron Wilson and Jaleel Bey in August, Texas, from the 25th to the 27th. We're going to be sold out of tickets probably in the next few days. So,
how big of a venue is that?
It's 100 people. It's not going to be anything monstrous. But it's our first time, so we're not going to make it we're not going to do 9 billion people on our first time. We're just going to do 100 people and just kind of keep it simple. And then we'll build it out from there. It's a 3-day event. I don't know if I'm going to start doing a bunch of these or just like 1 or 2 a year or what. I'm also going to be speaking at the Dave Asprey Biohacking Convention, which is going to be at the very end of May, which is like very mainstream. So it's like my first super ultra mainstream um, thing. And they were going to give me 45 minutes. And I said, I literally told the guy, I was like, if you give me 45 minutes, you're going to have a fucking riot on your hands. It's not going to work out the way you think. It's going to be awful.
Right.
You're going to give me the red light, and you're literally going to have like a full blown LA riot. People are going to be throwing chairs and shit. Not to be a dick, not to be egotistical. I'm just telling you, I can't get in and out of things in 45 minutes. I just can't.
Right. Yeah.
And
no,
so
that's impossible.
And so I told him, I said, you know, I'll do it, but I'm warning you, it's not going to be good. It's going to be bad. And
Like
so
it's like super condensed fucking Cole's Notes version.
I don't even know. I mean, I would do it if I had to do it. I'll do it. But then they reorganized the event and they gave me 90 minutes, which I think will be great. So I'll be doing a 90-minute presentation for Dave Asprey Biohacking Convention on day 1. It's a 3-day convention. Mine's around 5 p.m. or something, or 4 p.m. on the first day. So I'm pretty excited. My first ultra mainstream. I'm trying to hook up with Ian Carroll. I'm trying to obviously get on Rogan. I'm trying to get this whole thing to like an explosive point. I'd go on anything. I'd go on Tucker Carlson. I'd go on any show. And I've done, 160 or so of these shows, like all sorts of shows, Tinfoil Hat, just did, what is it called? Cult of Conspiracy. I just did one with them. And then we're doing a second show, I think this weekend. They wanted me to come on right away for a second show, which happens quite a bit. Any show that'll have me, I'm typically on. So, just like this show, thank you very much for having me on. And it's going really well. So just keep pushing it.
Fantastic, man.
Yeah.
We need to get you to the point where people aren't going to look at you like, oh, is this guy really legit? Because I still hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Do you get that a lot still?
No, not directly towards me or like in my comments or anything. No, because the thing is that, why would you ask that question when you could just sign up for a course that's totally free that comes straight to your email?
Well, right. But like a lot of people, I guess they still want to fucking take the time to do that. You know what I mean?
I mean, if you don't want to take the time to do that, then what's the point of answering the question?
Absolutely.
So if the course costs money, then I could see that I would have a position that I would need to defend myself, right? But because the course is completely and utterly free, it's just not. If anybody tries to comment,
really a fucking no-brainer, really.
If anyone tries to comment anything on any of my stuff, they just get. I don't even do anything. They just get dogpiled and attacked from like 18 different directions, and I don't even do anything. It's just like, what are you, retarded? The course is free. Like, what the hell's wrong with you, right? So it's a cool spot to be in. I don't really have to defend myself. There's nothing to defend.
That's smart way of doing it. But yeah, like people don't even have to like ask me either. I'll just direct them. You know what I mean? Like, go fucking do the course and see for yourself. It speaks for itself. So just do it.
Yeah.
So do you want to get into a little bit what the second course is all about?
Well, actually, we've had a lot of breakthroughs since the second course even.
Okay.
If
whichever direction you want to go is fine.
Yeah, I forget what I did a year and a half ago, but I guarantee you the presentation's a lot different now than it was then.
Yeah, well, especially I've upgraded to video finally, so that was on audience demand on my part. Yeah.
Oh, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, yeah, let's pump it out. We'll start with a screen share, and we'll get this party started, and I'll show you guys all the hot new shit I got, and a lot of the stuff that I've been teaching for a long time. I've gotten a lot better at tying it down recently. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just start with a couple cases, and we'll get rolling. And the name of this will be Are You a U.S. Citizen? So the first course I typically start on one of these shows is a state Supreme Court, California Supreme Court case called Ellen R. Van Valkenburg versus Albert Brown. And this is in reference to the 14th Amendment, which we're going to get into in more detail in another case in a moment. But I like this one specifically because it gives us a nice bird's eye view and kind of sets things up for where we're going to go in this show in a really beautiful and simple way, right? So what they say in this case, is no white person born within the limits of the United States and subject to their jurisdiction, or born without those limits and subsequently naturalized under their laws, owes the status of citizenship to the recent amendments to the federal Constitution. The history and aim of the 14th Amendment is well known, and the purpose had in view in its adoption well understood. That purpose was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons, domiciled within the limits of the United States, who could not be brought within the operation of the naturalization laws because native born, and whose birth, though native, had at the same time left them without the status of citizenship. So we'll stop there and we'll go over this, right? So what are they saying here? They're saying that the white people have nothing to do with the 14th Amendment. And if you type in the 14th Amendment into the internet, it has to do with the U.S. citizen category, the federal U.S. citizen category. And the case in which they basically determined that there's two different types of citizenship is called the slaughterhouse cases, which we will be getting into here in just a moment. The slaughterhouse cases, 83 U.S. 36, was a landmark U.S. Supreme Court decision which ruled that the Privileges or Immunities Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution only protects the legal rights that are associated with federal U.S. citizenship, not those that pertain to state citizenship.
Okay.
So there's two types of citizenship. Nobody knows this, which is really sad. There's state citizenship and there's U.S. citizenship.
Okay.
So when you say you are a U.S. citizen, you're saying you're on the federal side, not the state side. And as we're going to go through this, you're going to realize you aren't a U.S. citizen. You never were a U.S. citizen. You weren't born in the United States. You've always been a state citizen. And state citizens don't need driver's licenses. State citizens don't pay taxes. And state citizens don't need concealed carry permits. And we're going to get into all that on this show.
Awesome.
So let's get back to this case here. So what was the purpose of the 14th Amendment? The purpose was to confer the status of citizenship upon a numerous class of persons domiciled within the limits of the United States who could not be brought within the operation of the naturalization laws because native born and whose birth, though native, had at the same time left them without the status of citizenship. These persons were not white persons, but were, in the main, persons of African descent who had been held in slavery in this country, or, if having themselves never been held in slavery, were the native-born descendants of slaves. Prior to the adoption of the 14th Amendment, it was settled that neither slaves nor those who had been such, nor the descendants of these, though native and freeborn, were capable of becoming citizens of the United States. That's the Dred Scott case, which we're going to cover also in a moment. That's brand new. I just read the case over the past few days. The 13th Amendment, though conferring the boon, which means benefit, of freedom upon native-born persons of African blood, had yet left them under an insuperable, which means impossible to overcome, bar as to citizenship, and it was mainly to remedy this condition that the 14th Amendment was adopted.
All right.
So if we boil all this down into ultra dumb Beavis and Butthead version, the 13th Amendment released the slaves. They had no citizenship. The 14th Amendment created a new type of citizenship called a U.S. citizen category. That U.S. citizen category was specifically created only and exclusively for all of the African descendant slaves that were released by the 13th Amendment, but they had no citizenship. The 14th Amendment gave them citizenship, and white people have absolutely nothing to do with any of this, including.
That is fucking crazy, dude.
So the term U.S. citizen cannot be used if it's being used in reference to a white person. It's physically impossible. So if you tell the government you're a U.S. citizen, you're telling the government you're of African descent.
Right.
By definition. And we're going to get into how that works and why is that and what it means and blah, 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 blah. Okay. So let's move on to, now we're going to move on to some Supreme Court cases. The first one we're going to move on to is the Dred Scott case, the one we just talked about a moment ago, Dred Scott versus Sanford. So Dred Scott versus Sanford happened in 1857. And this case was a case that caused, so there was already, things were already heating up regarding slavery and we were already moving towards a civil war. This case really added quite a bit of gasoline onto that fire. So basically, if you type in like, did the Dred Scott case create the Civil War? It'll say no, but it'll say that it definitely was a huge contributor to accelerating the frustrations associated with what happened with the Civil War. This is the case, okay? And I explain all that here in this little note that I have here, right, which we're not going to read. So here are some quotes from the Dred Scott case, 1857. The words people of the United States and citizens are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. Now, keep in mind, when we're reading this, it wasn't until 1873 when this whole two different type of citizen thing started to happen. We're going to go into that in a moment. It's called the slaughterhouse cases. So this is about 15 years or so before that occurred. So when we're reading this, there's only one type of citizenship at this time, which is the state citizen. There is no U.S. citizen category yet. So the words people of the United States and state citizen are synonymous terms and mean the same thing. Would be kind of like how you would read this now after 1873, which we're going to get into in just a moment, okay?
Okay.
They both describe the political body who, according to our Republican institutions, form the sovereignty and who hold the power and conduct the government through their representatives. They are what we familiarly call the sovereign people, and every citizen is one of this people and a constituent member of his sovereignty. Now, again, this is only talking about state citizens.
Right.
So the U.S. citizen category wouldn't apply to something like this, but we're going to get into that in just a moment, right? So the question before us, whether the class of whether the class of persons described in the plea and abatement compose a portion of this people, meaning slaves of African descent, is what they're talking about, right? And are constituent members of this sovereignty. We think they are not, and that they are not included and were not intended to be included under the word citizen in the Constitution, and can therefore claim none of the rights and privileges which that instrument provides for and secures to citizens of the United States. So what are they saying here in Dred Scott? African slaves and released African slaves and the descendants of released African slaves are not and cannot be citizens and are not and cannot have any connection to the U.S. Constitution.
Wow.
Continuing on this case, on the contrary, they were at that time considered as a subordinate and inferior class of beings who had been subjugated by the dominant race and, whether emancipated or not, yet remained subject to their authority and had no rights or privileges, but such as who held the power and the government might choose to grant them. Now, just by the way, if someone wants to go and read any of these cases, you're going to go to Google Scholar. You're going to click on the bottom where it says case law, and you're just going to type in Dred Scott v. Sanford. There it is. Click there. This is the entire case. Now, this case is very interesting. It gives a extremely detailed history of the entire country, the Articles of Confederation, the Naturalization Act of 1790, the definition of a citizen in each individual state, how they defined it, racism, slavery, it was like, it's literally like an entire book's worth of everything you need to know about slavery in this country. Literally, I'm not kidding.
Right.
Okay. So these are, all I'm showing you here is just a few quotes from this case, right? But if you want to obviously read the whole case, that's the smartest thing, right? So here's the next quote from Dred Scott versus Sanford. In the opinion of the court, the legislation and histories of the times and the language used in the Declaration of Independence show that neither the class of persons who had been imported as slaves nor their descendants, whether they had become free or not, were then acknowledged as a part of the people, nor intended to be included in the general words used in that memorable instrument, referring to the Constitution. It is difficult at this day to realize the state of public opinion in relation to that unfortunate race, which prevailed in the civilized and enlightened portions of the world at the time of the Declaration of Independence. I'm sorry, they're talking about the Declaration of Independence, not the Constitution in the first sentence.
Right.
And when the Constitution of the United States was framed and adopted. But the public history of every European nation displays it in a manner too plain to be mistaken. They had, for more than a century before, been regarded as beings of an inferior order, and although altogether unfit to associate with the white race, either in social or political relations, and so far inferior that they had no rights which the white man was bound to respect, and that the Negro might justly and lawfully be reduced to slavery for his benefit. He was bought and sold and treated as an ordinary article of merchandise and traffic, whenever a profit could be made by it. This opinion was at that time fixed and universal in the civilized portion of the white race. It was regarded as an axiom in morals as well as in politics, which no one thought of disputing or supposed to be open to dispute, and men in every grade and position in society daily and habitually acted upon it in their private pursuits, as well as in matters of public concern, without doubting for a moment the correctness of this opinion. They never even, this is how the world was, and they never even questioned it. That's what they're saying in Dred Scott.
Yeah.
And in no nation was this opinion more firmly fixed or more uniformly acted upon than by the English government and English people. They not only seized them on the coast of Africa and sold them or held them in slavery for their own use, but they took them as ordinary articles of merchandise to every country where they could make a profit on them, and were more extensively engaged in this commerce than any other nation in the world. Now here's a real shocker. Ready for this one? But there are two clauses in the Constitution which point directly and specifically to the Negro race as a separate class of persons and show clearly that they were not regarded as a portion of the people or citizens of the government then formed. This is Dred Scott versus Sanford. And this is the case that basically the slaughterhouse cases was put together to try to fix this. So the slaughterhouse cases is really where the whole country kind of went to shit, basically. So Dred Scott happened. The whole country went into a civil war. We're coming out of the Civil War. The 13th Amendment released the slaves. Now the 14th Amendment, this is the Supreme Court trying to figure out what the 14th Amendment means and how are they going to give the released Negro slaves some sort of citizenship.
Right.
So here we go. The first section, this is a new case, slaughterhouse cases. This is the main case I talk about all the time on the show. It's the most important case that's ever happened in the entire history of our country, as far as I'm concerned. The first section of the 14th article, to which our attention is more specially invited, opens with a definition of citizenship. Not only citizenship of the United States, but citizenship of the states. No such definition was previously found in the Constitution, nor had any attempt been made to define it by act of Congress. It has been the occasion of much discussion in the courts, by the executive departments, and in the public journals. It has been said by eminent judges that no man was a citizen of the United States, except as he was a citizen of one of the states composing the Union. Those, therefore, who had been born and resided always in the District of Columbia or in the territories, though within the United States, were not citizens. Then all the Negro race who had been recently been made free men were still not only not citizens, but were incapable of becoming so by anything short of an amendment to the Constitution. To remove this difficulty primarily and to establish a clear and comprehensive definition of citizenship, which should declare what should constitute citizenship of the United States and also citizenship of a state, the first clause of the first section was framed. And that first clause of that first section is First Clause, 14th Amendment. And people have been arguing about what this means since the day it was written. And everyone is wrong, including Mr. Trump, who I don't actually hate. I've never ever heard of anyone even coming close to what this sentence means. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
Right.
I've never ever heard anyone come even remotely close to the definition of what this first sentence means, because the word persons, we've already figured it out. It's released slaves of African descent or their descendants. So right away, without getting into, we're going to get into all these words in this sentence, and it's just going to rip your skull right off. All released African slaves or their descendants born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. That's just the first word, but we're going to go through, and there's a lot of all these words. No one understands any of these words. We're going to clear them all up. Okay.
Probably naturalized, especially.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I covered that one last time I was on your show, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So going back, now Samuel Freeman Miller is the guy giving this. Samuel Freeman Miller. This is the guy who's talking while I'm reading this. This is what it looks like. Okay. So let's get back into this. Slaughterhouse cases. The first observation we have to make on this clause is that it puts at rest both the questions which we stated to have been the subject of differences of opinion. It declares that persons may be citizens of the United States without regard to their citizenship of a particular state. And it overturns the Dred Scott decision by making all persons born within the United States and subject to its jurisdiction citizens of the United States. That its main purpose was to establish the citizenship of the Negro can admit of no doubt. The phrase subject to its jurisdiction was intended to exclude from its operation children of ministers, consuls, and citizens or subject of foreign states born within the United States. So everyone on the whole earth argues about what it means here: born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. Mr. Miller's told you what that "and subject to the jurisdiction thereof" means in black and white. Subject to its jurisdiction was intended to exclude from its operation children of ministers, consuls, and citizens or subjects of foreign states born within the United States.
Right.
And no one knows that either. Never heard anybody say that, ever. No politician, no attorney. I've never heard anybody ever say that. It's not my fucking words. I'm not telling you shit. This is straight from the fucking, this is not my, I'm not making this shit up, right? So here's the next quote. The next observation is more important in view of the arguments of counsel in the present case. It is that the distinction between citizenship of the United States and citizenship of a state is clearly recognized and established. Not only may a man be a citizen of the United States without being a citizen of a state, but an important element is necessary to convert the former into the latter. He must reside within the state to make him a citizen of it, but it is only necessary that he should be born or naturalized in the United States to be a citizen of the Union. It is quite clear that there is a citizenship of the United States and a citizenship of a state which are distinct from each other and which depend upon different characteristics or circumstances in the individual. So every single time you're asked, are you a U.S. citizen? They're asking you if you are a released Negro slave or the descendant of a released Negro slave. And when you say yes, you've just flushed the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution down the drain because it has nothing to do with you. You've told them that the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution has absolutely nothing to do with you whatsoever.
That is fucking insane.
So what does that mean? That means that now you need permission from mommy and daddy to drive a car, driver's license. That means now you need permission from mommy and daddy to carry what they call a firearm, concealed carry permit. That means that now in order to open a business, you have to get a business license from mommy and daddy because you don't have any of those rights. You don't have the right to bear arms. Now what happened is over the years, we have something called the incorporation doctrine. So ever since the slaughterhouse cases, what's been happening is the courts have been trying to re-implement all of the original rights that state citizens have into this new federal U.S. citizenship category.
Right.
And if you type in incorporation doctrine and you look it up on Cornell, it goes through each individual amendment and it tells you which ones have been incorporated and which ones have not. Now, if you look here, it says here the Second Amendment fully incorporated. The Second Amendment wasn't fully incorporated until 2010. Now, keep in mind, if you say you're a federal U.S. citizen, yes, you can say you have the right to keep and bear arms, and you can reference McDonald versus Chicago. But the problem with that is that if you are a U.S. citizen, all of these, none of these are actually rights. They're actually under the title of privileges and immunities. State citizens have rights. U.S. citizens have privileges and immunities. So yes, you can argue in a court of law as a U.S. citizen that you have the right to keep and bear arms, and you can reference this case, but ultimately at the end of the day, they can just say no.
Right. What is the alternative to calling yourself or claiming that you're a U.S. citizen?
State citizen.
Okay.
So I'm a Californian. If I'm asked if I'm a U.S. citizen, the answer is always a very emphatic no. Absolutely.
Okay.
No.
I just wanted to clarify that for anybody who's listening.
Yeah. Now let's say you wanted to go through here and you say to yourself, oh, I want to use the Third Amendment. The Third Amendment is completely not incorporated at all into the U.S. citizen category. You cannot use the Third Amendment at all for any reason. The Fourth Amendment has been fully incorporated. It gives you the cases in which that occurred. The Fifth Amendment is partially incorporated. The right to an indictment by a grand jury is not incorporated. And this is why you don't have to have a grand jury indictment in order to be prosecuted criminally as a U.S. citizen. As a state citizen, you do. As a U.S. citizen, you do not. And you see that all over the place in the culture, right? Sixth Amendment has been partially. Right to jury selected from residents of the state and district where the crime occurred is not incorporated. And you can actually see this very clearly. Do you need to be a U.S. citizen to be on a jury? Yes. So what that means is white people cannot be on juries. It's a physical impossibility for any white person to be on a jury.
Yet there still are.
There still are, correct.
Right.
So the thing is that a U.S. citizen are the only people who could form a jury. I'm not a U.S. citizen, and I actually do have the incorporated right to juries selected from residents of the state and district where the crime occurred. A U.S. citizen wouldn't have that right, but a state citizen would. I'm a state citizen. So they would actually have to put together an entirely different, very special jury of state citizens within my area, which that's going to be pretty tough. You know what I mean? But I would make them do it. Seventh Amendment was never incorporated into the U.S. citizen category. Eighth Amendment, and then they don't even mention the Ninth and the 10th Amendment at all. The Ninth Amendment is probably one of the coolest amendments there are. And as a state citizen, you get the Ninth Amendment. As a U.S. citizen, I do not believe the Ninth Amendment applies to you at all. Ninth Amendment. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. I mean, people think the Second Amendment's so fucking cool. I actually think the Ninth Amendment's the coolest amendment. The Ninth Amendment says basically, if the Constitution doesn't give you the right, then fuck it. You still have it. Just give it to yourself, basically.
Right.
Now, only state citizens have the Ninth Amendment. U.S. citizens absolutely do not have the Ninth Amendment. They would laugh at you if you brought it up. So going back to the case when all this happened, we think this distinction and its explicit recognition in this amendment of great weight in this argument, because the next paragraph of this same section, which is one mainly relied on by the plaintiffs in error, speaks only of privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States and does not speak of those of citizens of the several states. So he's saying that privileges and immunities only apply to U.S. citizens, which is only released slaves of Negro descent or the descendants of released slaves of Negro descent, not Negro descent, I apologize. All this terminology, if I get it wrong, it seems very racist, but I assure you, I'm just a researcher. I don't give a shit at all.
I totally realize that.
Yeah. So African descent. So let's go to the next one here. Of the privileges and immunities of the citizen of the United States and of the privileges and immunities of the citizen of the state and what they respectively are, we will presently consider, but we wish to state here that it is only the former which are placed by this clause under the protection of the federal Constitution, and that the latter, whatever they may be, are not intended to have any additional protection by this paragraph of the amendment. So what that means is if you so much as even use the 14th Amendment for absolutely any reason, you are automatically saying that you are a U.S. citizen.
Exactly, yeah.
The 14th Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with white people, and the U.S. citizen category has absolutely nothing to do with white people, and none of this shit has absolutely anything to do with white people. And driver's licenses are pretty much only issued to, I mean, not really, but basically U.S. citizens. And they're only issued to, passports are only issued to U.S. citizens. And there's another category called non-citizen national of the United States. Basically, everything in the whole society is pretty much built for U.S. citizens. And what's funny is, you know, here we are 4 or 5 generations later. How can you even tell that an African person or a black person is of African descent? What if they've gone through 2 or 3 different births with white people, and now they aren't necessarily entirely the descendant of slaves? And what if they are the descendant of slaves and no one knows and you don't tell anybody? And now the courts have to prove it. So if they want to prove that you're of African descent so they can force you to be a U.S. citizen, then put that evidence on them, make them prove it. Why would you hand them the evidence for that?
Why would they keep this from people? I guess just out of pure control. I guess, right?
Yeah. So a state citizen runs the government. The government runs U.S. citizens. State citizens are above the government. U.S. citizens are below the government.
Right.
That's how it works. And you can look all that up online. You can look up.
And yeah, we did discuss a lot of this in the first episode, like the corporation of America versus the sovereign citizen, right?
Yeah. So if then there is a difference between the privileges and immunities belonging to a citizen of the United States as such and those belonging to the citizen of the state as such, the latter must rest for their security and protection where they have heretofore rested, for they are not embraced by this paragraph of the amendment, right? Let's see here. So you're getting the picture of what this is and how this works. Now, if we go back up, we're going to go back to the first clause of the 14th Amendment, and we're going to find where District of Columbia. Let's go. So you can see here, we're going to go back to this quote from the Slaughterhouse Cases, right? And he says here, those, therefore, who had been born and resided always in the District of Columbia or in the territories, though within the United States, were not citizens, right? So this is the part where, now we're going to get into, where is the United States, right? For USC 71, permanent seat of government, right? All that part of the territory of the United States included within the present limits of the District of Columbia shall be the permanent seat of government of the United States. UCC 9-307, Uniform Commercial Code, subsection H. The United States, location of United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia.
Right.
And then one of the new things that I have that we're going to bring up on this show is some quotes from Thomas Jefferson. Very important. He breaks this down really well. I just got these recently. So this is the way all this breaks down. The states can best govern our home concerns, and the general government our foreign ones. I wish, therefore, never to see all offices transferred to Washington, where, further withdrawn from the eyes of the people, they may more secretly be bought and sold at market, which is exactly what happened. Cool. The Slaughterhouse Cases is what made this happen.
Right.
My general plan would be to make the states one as to everything connected with foreign nations and several as to everything purely domestic. Let's see here. So what he's trying to say, the best general key for the solution of questions of power between our governments is the fact that every foreign and federal power is given to the federal government, and to the states, every power purely domestic. So what does that mean? It means the federal government is involved in foreign situations, or foreigners coming here or us going elsewhere, foreign relations. And then the states are for domestic. Right? So United States is the federal government. When you're saying federal government, you just say the term United States and you're referring to the federal government. The state government is for domestic. So like anything domestic, anything involving the 50 states of the Union would be state-to-state relations. Anything involving some sort of foreign situation or foreigners coming here in a state, that would be done through what's called United States, which is the federal government. Basically. Right. So if we go back to the first clause, now we can read this. I guess we can also look up naturalization for people who haven't seen the first show. We'll just get that definition real quick. That's a pretty shocking one. That's one of the most shocking definitions I've ever seen. The term 8 USC 1101 subsection A23. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever.
I remember that, yep.
So now let's go back. We can almost read this whole sentence now. Almost. We're almost there. We've got one more thing we need to clear up, which will take a minute. So I'm going to read this the way it's written, and then I'm going to start replacing all of the words. Okay? And we're going to figure this out. Let me just pull this up. There it is. Let's do it. So let's read this first line of the 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. Now, let's reread it by clearing up all of the words with a lot of the information we've already covered. All African descendant slaves or their children born or conferred of nationality of a state upon them by any means whatsoever in the District of Columbia and is not a child of ministers, consuls, and it isn't a citizen or subject of foreign states born within the District of Columbia, are citizens of the District of Columbia and of the state wherein they reside. That's actually what they're saying here.
Absolutely.
Now, the last thing is this word reside. That's the most important part, right? So in order to clear that up, we're going to have to open up Black's Law. We're going to have to go to the word domicile. Okay. And then we're going to clear up the word reside, and then now it's going to make perfect sense. Domicile, domicile, domicile. There we go. Domicile. Oh. Here it is. So this is domicile. It's a subsection inside of domicile. Domicile and residence, however, are frequently distinguished in that the domicile is the home, the fixed place of habitation, whereas residence is a transient place of dwelling. So when you use the word resident or residence, that term is used for foreigners that are in a foreign land temporarily. That's why they never use the word domicile. If you look in the 14th Amendment, he doesn't use the word reside. He uses it in certain areas, but he also uses the word domicile. And Ellen R. Van Valkenburg, class of persons domicile within the limits of the United States. So they're domiciled in the District of Columbia, but they're resident of a state.
Wow.
So if you're a U.S. citizen, your citizenship is on the federal level. When you're inside of a state, you're not actually a citizen of a state. You're actually a resident, or you reside in that state as a foreigner. You're basically a foreigner in the state. You don't have state citizenship. Because like we went over in the slaughterhouse cases, state citizenship and U.S. citizenship are completely disconnected. So if you're a U.S. citizen and you're inside of California, then you're supposed to be in the District of Columbia and you're in a foreign land and you're just there temporarily, but your domicile is the District of Columbia. So when you say you're a U.S. citizen, you're actually supposed to be in the District of Columbia, but you're actually in a foreign land of which you don't have citizenship. And just like we've covered with the Thomas Jefferson quotes, who handles foreign affairs? The federal government. So you fall under the federal government. It's why you need a driver's license and all this other bullshit. And it's also why you have to pay taxes. You have to pay taxes because you're a foreigner inside of the United States, and foreigners pay taxes. If you were a state citizen and you were domiciled in California, you don't pay taxes. You're not a taxpayer.
That is fucking crazy.
So check it out. So let's go to voter registration. California. And you'll see this. You'll see this right here. Look at all the different options you have to be a registered voter. Now look at this. Look at the first quote of the slaughterhouse cases. The Negro, having by the 14th Amendment been declared to be a citizen of the United States, is thus made a voter in every state of the Union. That's what this is. Every single one says U.S. citizen, which means a citizen of the District of Columbia and not of a state, and resident of California, meaning foreigner from a foreign land. So if I read this first one in English, somebody who has subjected themselves to the laws of the District of Columbia, but they're not in the District of Columbia, they're temporarily in a foreign land of which they are not a citizen of, called California. That's what this line is saying.
Right.
Now, naturalization, if we go back to naturalization, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person after birth by any means whatsoever. So people get mad and they say that, oh, they did this and they did that. No, you did. When you told them you're a U.S. citizen, when you filled out voter registration, you naturalized. You didn't naturalize into California. You naturalized into the District of Columbia.
Exactly.
And that's what's happening. And you're doing it all the time. You're doing it with your driver's license. You're doing it every single time you sign a W-9 tax form. If I sign one of these, boy, I'm going to prison so fucking fast. Holy shit. So W-9 tax form, if you go down, it says here, I certify under penalty of perjury, I certify that. Number 3, I am a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person, defined below. Sign here, signature of U.S. person. Now check it out. 18 U.S.C. 911. Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself to be a citizen of the United States shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years, or both.
Fuck.
We also have 18 U.S.C. 1622. Oh, wait, what? Oh. Whoever procures another to commit any perjury is guilty of subornation of perjury and shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 5 years or both. So let's say, for example, you have someone in the payroll department or an HR department, and they're trying to force you to sign a W-9 form. If you want to get real fucking pissed off, you head down to your DA's office because you can't file one of these. This is a criminal complaint. You have to go down to the DA's office. You have to file it with them, and then they have to bring the charges. And you're going to file an 18 U.S.C. 1622 criminal complaint on your HR employer. And you're gonna tell the local DA that your HR or payroll person, whoever it is trying really, really hard and essentially extorting you to commit a felony violation of 18 U.S.C. 911.
What would that do to the HR person?
They'd be fucking horrified. They'd be absolutely terrified. Because then after you file your criminal complaint, you're going to give them a copy of it. And you're going to say, hey, If you file my documents correctly, and if you make sure that no taxes are coming out of my paycheck, I will drop this criminal complaint. If you don't, I'm going to continue to press for up to 5 years in prison.
Wow.
Because the thing is, if you pay taxes, you're a felon. Well, it's not quite that, right? So again, this is the word that nobody has, right? Whoever falsely and willfully represents himself, right? So everybody walks around saying they're a U.S. citizen, but they don't understand any of this information. So it wouldn't be willful, right? But once you watch some of my videos and once you really realize the difference between a state and federal U.S. citizen, at that point you become willful. And if you continue to say that you are a U.S. citizen after that point, now we are looking at an 18 U.S.C. 911 violation.
Right.
You have to say you're a U.S. citizen to get a fucking concealed carry permit. You have to say you're a U.S. citizen to get a driver's license. Not always, but kind of, basically, depending on which state you're in. You have to say you're a U.S. citizen to do a lot of things. And the thing is that, and the reason why is because you don't need a business license. You don't need a concealed carry permit. None of those things have anything to do with you as a state citizen. State citizens, people wonder where all your rights went. Where did all my rights go? And why can't I buy a gun? And why can't I carry without a permit? Well, this is where your rights went. Yeah. This whole U.S. citizen, state citizen thing that was started by the slaughterhouse cases in 1873. And the only way it can operate is that if they have to ask you if you're a U.S. citizen, and then you have to say yes. And that's what activates all of this.
Is it just specifically stating it verbally, or is it citing as well? Is it both?
It's both. The answer, your answer is naturalization. 8 U.S.C. 1101, subsection A23. The term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state. When you say you're a U.S. citizen, you are conferring the nationality of a state called District of Columbia upon yourself after birth by any means whatsoever. And the word person means an individual or an organization. So all of this information applies to your trusts, your corporations, estates, companies, partnerships, associations, etc. You can also confer the nationality if you say that a lot of people don't realize. So, for example, what's the definition of a U.S. citizen? 42 U.S.C. 9102 subsection 18. United States citizen means A, any individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. That's where naturalization comes in right here.
Okay.
Any federal, state, or local government in the United States or any entity of any such government. And then number C is pretty shocking for people who are new to this. Any corporation, partnership, association, or other entity organized or existing under the laws of the United States. So if you have a C Corp or an S Corp or an LLC, and that C Corp or S Corp or LLC was born in the District of Columbia, meaning you opened it up through the government, that corporation, LLC or C Corp or whatever, is by itself a U.S. citizen.
Huh.
And you ask yourself, well, why is that? And that's because of the definition of the word person. So we go down to the definition of the word person. You're going to see it defined a little bit differently everywhere, but it pretty much always includes all these different things. This is from the tax code, Title 26 U.S.C. 7701, subsection A1. The term person shall be construed to mean and include an individual, a trust, estate, partnership, association, company, or corporation. So because a corporation or a state or partnership or other entity is a person, that person is a United States citizen.
Yeah.
So what that starts to unlock is you can reverse engineer that idea. And whenever anybody says the term U.S. citizen, you got to realize, you got to ask yourself, they could be talking about a corporation. They could be talking about a partnership. They could be talking about an association or any other entity. So the idea that a U.S. citizen only applies to a man or a woman is the biggest crock of bullshit on the fucking planet. The term U.S. citizen can include any type of legal fiction. Any type of legal construct can be a U.S. citizen.
It's basically just like declaring ownership over everything.
Yes.
Anyone and everything. That's fucking wild, man.
So then you see this definition of the word individual everywhere, right? Individual, individual, individual. And you say to yourself, oh, that must be me, right? Well, it took me a long time to figure that one out. So if we go to 26 CFR 301.7701-11, we're going to find out what the Social Security number is, right? The term Social Security number, when it's used in the tax code, means the taxpayer identifying number of an individual or estate. Okay, so let's go over to the EIN request form, the SS4, and let's take a look at what various options they have when you're signing up for an SSN or for an EIN. Type of entity, which is subsection 9A. Okay. Let's go back and review 26 CFR 301.7701-11. Social Security number means the taxpayer identifying number of an individual or an estate. Estate, SSN. Okay, so we've got it right here. Under estate, it says SSN. But then where's the other SSN? It's under this term sole proprietor. So this term sole proprietor must be what they're talking about when they're talking about the word individual.
Right.
What is a sole proprietorship? This is from the IRS website. A sole proprietor is somebody who owns an unincorporated business by themselves. And if you read more about it, it's just whenever you use your name, just all by itself, and you're doing business. If you do Brandon Joe Williams painting, it wouldn't be a sole proprietorship necessarily. It could, or it could be, it could not be. But just Brandon Joe Williams by itself would be a sole proprietorship. You got to ask yourself, where in the flying fuck did this company come from? They're literally telling you your name is a company. Where in the fuck did this company come from? The word individual means sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is a business. So we go back to all these different definitions. United States citizen means an individual who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. We've already figured out that a corporation, partnership, association, or other entity can be a U.S. citizen. It's right there in subsection C. The definition of the word individual is not a man or a woman. It's a sole proprietorship.
It's all lumped into that one thing.
So United States citizen means any sole proprietorship who is a citizen of the United States by law, birth, or naturalization. If you go to back to Title 8 and click on person, person means an individual or an organization. The term person means a sole proprietorship or an organization. None of these laws are talking about men and women at all. And that's how taxes are 100% completely legal, because they aren't taxing you directly. Direct taxes are illegal. Congress has said that since the dawn of time. They've also said that the 16th Amendment didn't give the tax authorities any new tools or abilities. So what did they do? We're going to go to another quote from the Slaughterhouse Cases. Everything, literally, that you hate about everything in this world comes from the Slaughterhouse Cases.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Sure.
There is a lot of talk about how people were saying that once you take like a vaccine or whatever, you become a product of that company. But we're already products, are we not? Considering what we're all
when you
talking
say you're a
about
U.S.
earlier.
citizen, you're basically telling the government that you're their property.
Right. Whew.
That's why, yes, we have the indoctrination, the incorporation doctrine. Yes, a bunch of things have been reincorporated into the U.S. citizenship category. But because of the basic idea of the classification of being property of the government, you can reference those cases and you can say you have the right to bear arms, but they can just say no. They can literally just say no. The definition of the word privilege, if you look it up, it's something that's given to you that can be taken away. A right cannot be taken away. State citizens have rights. U.S. citizens have privileges. So even if you did want to go into a court of law and reference that whatever versus Chicago from 2010 case and say, I do have the right to bear arms, Your Honor, he can just say, fuck you. No, you don't. I don't care what that case says.
Exactly.
Whereas if you're a state citizen and you go in there and you say, the Second Amendment to the Constitution, I have the right to bear arms, he can't do anything about that. He has absolutely no ability to negate that fact at all whatsoever. Rights are not something that can be taken away by the government. Privileges are.
Mm-hmm.
So the entire incorporation doctrine is pretty much fucking pointless, honestly. So here's another huge quote, and this explains the whole sole proprietorship thing. It also comes from the slaughterhouse cases. Everything shitty about this whole world comes from the slaughterhouse cases. I actually wrote to Justice Clarence Thomas. He's a Supreme Court justice, and he's actually communicated multiple times in the past that he really dislikes the slaughterhouse cases, and he wants to see it overturned. And we'll see if I get a response from him. It'd be pretty cool if I did. That's basically what I'm trying to do. So here's another quote. This is a absolutely insane quote. It transformed the whole country. This single quote. Slaughterhouse cases. That whenever a legislature has the right to accomplish a certain result, and that result is best attained by means of a corporation, it has the right to create such a corporation and to endow it with the powers necessary to effect the desired and lawful purpose, seems hardly to admit of debate. So what did they do? They opened up a sole proprietorship in the exact same name that you have, and then they're taxing the sole proprietorship, and you think it's you when it's not.
Holy fuck.
So the thing is it's not that. What's funny is that people run around all day long. Everyone's arguing is federal income tax and state tax constitutional? 100%. Yes, it is. It is 100% constitutional because it's an excise tax. It's a corporation tax. It just so happens that corporation has the same name as you and you get confused. That's it. That's the only thing that's happening. The Social Security number is the taxpayer identifying number of a sole proprietorship. So when they ask you for your Social Security number and you give them your Social Security number, you're telling them you're operating as a sole proprietorship. So when you get a job and they ask you for your Social Security number, you got to realize if I give them a Social Security number, I'm now going to be operating as a sole proprietorship in this job. Sole proprietorship has a tax liability because they can directly tax a sole proprietorship. It's an excise tax. It's not illegal. It's completely constitutional.
If you already did give them that number, can you take it away?
Of course.
Okay.
They might freak out and do all these things, but typically what I do is I just say, like, I closed all that. I don't have that number anymore. It's not mine.
Okay.
That number is linked to the sole proprietorship, and every time you use it, you're saying that you're operating as a sole proprietorship through whatever it is that you're doing, basically, right? And it's literally right here. You just take this, combine it with this, and bang, the word individual means sole proprietorship. Now, why is it that everything has to be a business? It's the Commerce Clause. This is why they had to give you a sole proprietorship. What is the Commerce Clause? It gives Congress the power to regulate commerce with foreign nations, among the states, and with the Indian tribes. Now, when you say you're a U.S. citizen, resident in California, you are operating in a foreign nation. So that gives them full jurisdiction to the Commerce Clause. Then they give you a sole proprietorship. That gives them full jurisdiction because you're operating a business among the states. So that's why everything's set up the way it is. So what is plenary power? This is the term they use. Complete power over a particular area with no limitations. This term is often used to describe the commerce power of Congress. So the only way Congress could get power over us with no limitations is by creating the sole proprietorship, creating the U.S. citizen category, and making everything a business or a commercial product. And what's so crazy is at the end of the day, all they can do is put out the trap, and then you have to be the one to step in it. They can't force you to step in it.
Right. It's like inviting in the vampire.
So if you stop saying you're a U.S. citizen and you get it taken off all the paperwork, and you stop using the social security number because it isn't yours, it's a business that happens to have the same name as yours that you can use if you want. Like when you're getting credit, you can use the social security number if you want. You just have to realize, I mean, if you look on a check picture, if you pull out your checkbook, or if you don't have any, go get some. Something very shocking. If you look here on the part where you sign, it says MP, right? What is MP on a check? It stands for microprint. And then basically, if you look really, really closely at what this line is, you might need to take like a magnifying glass. It's the word authorized signature over and over and over and over and over and over again.
No shit.
It's not actually a line. Yeah, anybody who's watching this can pull out your checkbook, and as long as you see this little MP right here, then that means it's there. And you can just get a magnifying glass, look really, really close at this line where you sign, and it says authorized signature over and over and over and over. What is authorized signature on a check? They changed this. Let's see here. An authorized signer is a person who has access to your business bank account and can conduct transactions on behalf of the business. So a personal account, the reason why it says authorized signer or authorized signature over and over and over again is because you are the authorized signature on behalf of an entity. That entity is the sole proprietorship. You don't have a personal bank account. Nobody does. A personal bank account is the account is opened under a sole proprietorship of which you are the authorized signer upon. Now think about this. If you didn't make the goddamn thing, and you don't know where the goddamn thing came from, the sole proprietorship, how are you so sure it's yours? And if it isn't yours, that makes perfect sense. If the IRS wants to dip into your account or anybody else does, what do? They just go in there and grab whatever they want and leave. It would make perfect sense. It's not your account. It never was. Again, if the social security number is used when you open up a bank account, means the taxpayer identifying number of a sole proprietorship. So whenever you see anything has that social security number on it, you know immediately your business is involved and you are just an agent or authorized user of whatever it is. But since you don't know where the flying fuck this sole proprietorship even came from, it obviously isn't yours. You didn't open it. Who opened it? Definition of public corporation. Public corporation. This is from Black's Law, 4th edition. A public corporation is one created by the state for political purposes and to act as an agency in the administration of civil government. And it comes from the slaughterhouse cases. That same quote I read before, that wherever a legislation has the right to accomplish a certain result, and that result is best attained by means of a corporation, it has the right to create such a corporation and to endow it with the powers necessary to effect the desired and lawful purpose seems hardly to admit of debate. So who opened it? Is they say here a legislature opened it. It's not your business.
Fuck, man. So fucking sneaky.
It's not your business. The Social Security number is not your number. It's not your business. You can use the business. You can use the number. They let you use it, but it ain't yours. And you really shouldn't use it in every single circumstance. There's certain circumstances where you can, and or it might be good, and there's certain circumstances where it wouldn't be, and you shouldn't. Taxation only applies to the sole proprietorship. They can't tax you as a man because that would be a direct tax, unapportioned. That would be unconstitutional.
Right.
An excise tax is a tax that's put on the privilege of operating as a corporation. So they gave you a corporation. You're confused as to who you are and who's the corporation. If you use the Social Security number, they say, oh, look, he's using a corporation. That's a privilege. They tax the corporation. You think it's you. You get confused. You're paying taxes on behalf of a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening.
That's how they do it, yeah.
And this is quite a red pill, my friend.
That is fucking insane, man. How much of this, how much in, like, that you've just presented is in the course? Like, all of this is obviously in the course, but how much more in the course is there?
Tons.
Okay.
This is like
barely even scratching the surface.
Maybe 8% of the course. Yeah, maybe 6% of the course we've covered so far on this show. A lot of the stuff that I'm showing you on this show is new stuff that helps to clarify a lot of the stuff in the course.
Okay.
Some
so
of the
it's kind of
stuff
like a cipher you thinking people can use.
I'm getting better and better at explaining all this with more and more evidence. I'm starting to collect a lot of court cases together. That's new. I didn't have that in the course. I didn't start really getting into the court case stuff really heavily until kind of more recently. So I'm starting to call and collect and put together a whole lot of court cases, and we've involved ourselves in a lot of litigation. I've been involved in a lot of different cases for about 14 months. So I'm just trying to nail everything down and prove everything and get more and more evidence compiled and more just, I released a flow chart, a financial flow chart, and then also a flow chart for all of this information just in December. So that really was a huge breakthrough. That's brand new. So this is all a work in progress. But it's definitely, I'm definitely getting better and better and better at displaying it all, and I'm definitely getting a lot better at proving it all. And then I'm also getting better at like what do I show first, second, third, fourth, like the linear presentation of it all, right? So it's all a work in progress. But I don't know if you remember the show we did a year and a half ago, but this presentation is completely different than that one was.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, so, man.
So moral of the story, if you have a concealed carry permit, By having that, you're saying you're a U.S. citizen. It's reverse psychology. So I say, and what I did is get rid of the driver's license, rid of everything, get rid of all your businesses, get rid of all your business licenses. I operate everything in my life through trusts, private trusts, which you can get EIN numbers for. You can open up bank accounts. You can have credit card processing. You can do all the same stuff with trusts as you can with any corporation, LLC, C Corp, S Corp, or anything else, right? Trusts are super cool. You can set them up in a way where they're foreign. So when you get your EIN, you're getting foreign EIN numbers. So you don't have to pay taxes. You don't have to even file a tax return. You can work with companies and they can report there's like a 1099K, I think it is, where they report like Stripe and all these credit card processing companies. They report all my shit to the IRS. And I still never do a tax return. I don't have to. In fact, if I file a tax return, I'd be going to prison.
Right. Be smart about it, people.
So I don't have a driver's license. I turned that in. I can't have one of those. I just use my passport for everything, basically.
Right.
I can't get a business license. I'd go to prison. So let's say I wanted to open up a bar. I would just serve alcohol. There'd be no rules. I wouldn't be charging any sales tax. I would have like on the door, there'd be like a notice of all the the legal situation of what's going on, because obviously I don't have a license to serve liquor. I don't have all these different things, and I wouldn't be able to get those things. I'd be going to prison if I tried to get those things. So I can't get those things. And so, but since I'm a state citizen, the Declaration of Independence and Constitution fully applies to me. It isn't a privilege or an immunity. It's actually rights. And I'm a white person. So the thing is that the 14th Amendment has nothing to do with me. U.S. citizenship has nothing to do with me. The incorporation doctrine has nothing to do with me. I'm not asking for privileges and immunities because I don't need them, because as Samuel Freeman Miller has covered already in the slaughterhouse cases, none of that shit has anything to do with a state citizen. It's totally irrelevant. It's basically a whole different nation, essentially. The whole country split into two different nations. The federal government had no citizenship prior to the slaughterhouse cases.
Right.
Slaughterhouse cases created this whole new citizenship underneath the government for the District of Columbia and its territories, which is Guam, Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and the Northern Mariana Islands. If you look up what are the U.S. territories, it's those 5. There's 9 uninhabited ones, but we're not going to get into that. They don't have any people on them. Only 5 of them are inhabited. It's the ones I just named. So basically,
and so they just never changed it and just rolled with it and never fucking really, like, I guess, relied on people's.
They just slowly, basically,
stupidity, but like ignorance, I guess, right?
They basically just slowly tricked everyone through. If you watch TV or play video games or do anything, it's just all you ever hear is U.S. citizen. You never heard the term state citizen.
Right.
So people just don't even know that there's these 2 types of citizenship, and they don't know that it's literally the easiest thing in the world to convert over to state citizenship. You just say it. You just say it and get rid of all your bullshit, and boom, you're done. It's that easy. There's no approval process. We're so brainwashed into getting approval.
Be careful when you're signing paperwork.
Yeah, when you sign paperwork. Now keep in mind, you have a sole proprietorship. So let's say, for example, you did want something from the government. You did want like welfare or food stamps or who knows, or God knows what. You can sign as the agent on behalf of the sole proprietorship.
Gotcha.
So the sole proprietorship is a person in the law. So you're basically, what I teach and what my course will teach you is you're going to be operating as 2 persons. You are 2 persons. They gave you this other person.
Right.
It's a business. They tell you straight up, the sole proprietorship is a business. It's not secret. It's not weird. It's not crazy. It's right there. The social security number is the tax identification number for that business. You have a business. That business has an EIN number. You need an EIN number to get a bank account opened. So if you use your name and your social security number to open up a bank account, you're opening up a bank account under, it's a business account. Everything is a business account. The only thing that's not a business account, a personal account is a business account. An LLC is a business account. A C Corp is a business account. An S Corp is a business account. A partnership is a business account. An association is a business account. Trusts can be non-business. And when you get into non-business, you start getting out of the Commerce Clause. Once you get out of the Commerce Clause, you basically snip the dick right off the federal government.
Fucking incredible, man.
And this is when you start getting into diplomatic immunity. If you're not in commerce, then where are you? In non-commerce. Well, who's in non-commerce? Diplomats. Diplomatic immunity is essentially just people who are operating on behalf of some foreign zone that are basically saying that they're non-commercial. They're operating through trusts and whatnot. So then, now all of a sudden you start unlocking diplomatic immunity, which is a whole arm of all my research.
Right.
So then we start getting into diplomatic IDs and diplomatic license plates. I have diplomatic IDs. I have diplomatic license plates.
That's a term that diplomatic immunity is a term that's used and almost in like a funny sort of way and like a comedic way because people don't really fucking know what it means.
Yeah, you have to be outside of commerce to get diplomatic immunity. Because how would you have diplomatic immunity if you're underneath the Commerce Clause?
Right.
Anything under the Commerce Clause is property or has the federal government has full jurisdiction over anything that would fall under the Commerce Clause. If you say you are a resident of California, that would fall under the Commerce Clause. Foreign nation, foreign activities. If you say you domicile in California and you're a citizen of California, and you never use the word residence or resident, that would not fall under the Commerce Clause.
Correct.
But no one does that. And I mean literally no one. The Commerce Clause is the portal. Everything, all your rights is on this side of the Commerce Clause. And 99.999% of everybody's on the other side.
Sure. Last time we spoke, I asked you about how your methods would work in Canada or Commonwealth like Australia. Have you had any more feedback on that?
As I go deeper and deeper and deeper into this, basically what happened is that every single country that has a central bank was basically bankrupted and then converted into a corporation, and it all operates under all of this same stuff. It's all the same stuff. It has different names, but it's all the same functionality.
Have you had any success stories in those countries?
Well, yeah, I've had a lot in Canada. I've had a lot in England. Canada and England might as well be us. It's the same shit.
Right.
Other places, it just depends. It depends on how close they are to the Canada, USA, England type. Because we're all from England in the USA. It's all based off of England and English law. Because that's where a lot of where we came from. So, stuff like all the European countries and stuff, I have no idea.
Right. That's a different story. Yeah.
India is shockingly similar.
Okay. Because
it was colonized by the English and stuff. I mean, England colonized most places, so you got to keep in mind, a lot of places are probably pretty similar. Places that might shock you, actually. If you were to go on to Google or something like that, or Wikipedia or something like that, and type in every single country that had been colonized by England, chances are that list, if your country is on that list, chances are it probably operates the same way. Not to saying that if it's not on that list, it doesn't. I'm just saying it's probably a pretty good bet if it's on that list that it's going to operate in this same way.
Okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is that a pickle?
Yeah.
I was like, it's either a pickle or a piece of grass growing out of soil.
Yeah, it's my whole marketing and everything is from the first course. There's like 2 or 3 times in the course where I say, if you don't understand this, it's okay. Just head down to the local farmer's market, get yourself the biggest, girthiest cucumber, and jam that son of a bitch straight up your ass, you stupid fuck. I don't give a shit. Go fuck yourself. Don't fucking call me, you fucking piece of shit, right? So and people loved it. It became like a fan favorite. I had a bunch of really goofy things on that first course. Like one of the things I thought was one of the funniest was I was talking about how when bar card attorneys, right? When bar card lawyers, right? When they, if you look in corpus juris secundum, it says that their number one priority is the court, their number two priority is the public, and their number three priority is the client. That's why the client basically gets the short end of the stick whenever you hire an attorney. That's why I always teach everybody you should just not do everything without an attorney. It's a lot better. And in the course, I say, yeah, the attorneys are like, they're like in the courtroom, sucking off everybody in the courtroom like fucking circus seal. And my headphones fall off in the first video when I'm doing that. I thought that shit was hilarious, but nobody really mentioned that one. It was the cucumber up the ass. That was the one that I got a million messages on, and it was a fan favorite. So I converted the entire platform into cucumbers and pickles. And if you go on, if you go on my website, I'll show you. If you go on onestupidfuck.com, you can even see it here. This is me.
Okay, that's the story. Okay.
In a Borat mankini with the girl, and then we have my stupid bio, and that's based off of this photo, which is Halloween. I think this is Halloween of like 2021. I went as Borat, right? And then we go, to. We got a whole bunch of different. So it's basically I became a pickle or cucumber in a Borat mankini, and that's kind of where
that's
where
fucking hilarious, dude.
That's kind of where it came from. We have that one, and then we have this one. This is the last one this one's probably one of my favorites here. We have a lot of fun, man.
You ready for this shit, pussy? That's so fucking funny, dude.
Yeah, right. Welcome,
It's
bitch.
great because like humor, I think, is a very important part of what we're dealing with. Like, not just what you're dealing with, but everything in general. Like, I always put funny shit in my stories because a lot of truth seekers post constant serious shit. And I have a lot of comments, people like, dude, I love fucking going to your page because like your stories are fucking hilarious. I just add like random shit that I see that's fucking hilarious. And it's like probably shit that'll like scare your mother too, right? So
yeah,
I'm all about that
I do the
shit.
same thing, bro. Yeah, fuck yeah. That's how it should be. I mean, when you start getting into diplomatic relations, you start getting into nations and what builds a nation and like all that is part of my research too. You'll start to realize that being at peace is really all you need. You don't need to be, people always say like, oh, like I have my own nation. And they always say like, oh, are you recognized? Well, it literally says in the definition of a foreign government that recognition is not a part of the definition at all. It literally says that in the definition. I can show it to you.
Right.
18 USC 11. 18 USC 11. Foreign government defined, right? Includes any government, faction, or body of insurgents within a country with which the United States is at peace, irrespective of recognition by the United States. So basically, you start to understand what puts together a nation, because you have to have sort of like your own nation in order to have diplomatic immunity. And in order to have your own nation, you don't need to be recognized. They don't even need to know you're there. You just have to be at peace. And you start going down the definition of what peace means legally. It means like internal and external tranquility. It means like sharing tranquility with the world. Like it's an action definition. It's actually not like being somewhere and not bothering anyone. It's actually not the definition. The definition is like actively tranquil inside the group and then actively like helping others to be more tranquil and helping people. And it's actually an action definition, right? So
it feels more like a spiritual definition, actually.
Yeah, when you understand how all that works, then you can have your own nation, and then you operate on the international sphere. You operate in international law rather than domestic law, and that's another way you can get out of the Commerce Clause. Really, all you have to do is just get out of the Commerce Clause. If you get out of the Commerce Clause, you're all set.
Yeah, this basically sums up everything right here that we talked about tonight.
The most logical way to get out of the Commerce Clause is just become a state citizen. People think they are already, and they have a lot of People want their rights and they want their constitution and they love their constitution. Become a state citizen. Easiest thing in the world.
Yeah.
If you're a state citizen, then bang, you've got it all. You've got everything you've ever wanted, and you don't need driver's licenses or concealed carry permits or business licenses or liquor licenses or a license to sell or a license to have a barber shop. And oh my God, it's just never ending. It's never going to end. If people don't become state citizens and get off this fucking released Negro slave U.S. citizen bullshit, it's just going to get a lot worse. You're going to need a license to fucking walk and a license to shop and a license to breathe eventually. The carbon tax. People have been talking about that for a long time. That's the ultimate tax. This is a license to breathe, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. And I used to say, even when I was a kid, like, what's next? Taxing our fucking breathing? And sure enough,
that's ultimately that's ultimately what they want. And the only way they can tax your breathing is if you tell them you're a released Negro slave.
Right.
It's the only way it can happen. I'm telling you, it can't happen. If you say you're a state citizen, it can't happen. It's impossible.
Unbelievable. Brandon, I'm going to wrap it up here. I would say everybody who's listening, onestupidfuck.com. That's where they can find you. The links are in the show notes. Thank you so much, man. It's been a fucking honor.
Thanks, guys.
Cool. Take it easy, brother.
You too, Brusky.